NYCC. My name is John, and with me this morning is Ryan.
Hey, it sounds like you are getting your voice back.
Yeah, I'm getting it back. We're recording one day later than normal because I texted Ryan the other day and said, "Look, man, I sound ridiculous, and it hurts a lot to talk," and that was the case, and still kind of the case. I'm actually really curious to see how I will sound by the end of this show. But yep, got a little bit of a throat thing, a cough thing, and really my body is just fighting back against believing all weekend long I'd be watching a Star Wars trailer today and then finding out it's not happening. So, yeah.
Your body is symptoms. Dying of a broken heart.
Yeah, yep, they can't explain it. We were going to record this show always. You know, we've had the notes, and this is stuff we wanted to talk about last week, so we were definitely going to do it. But a big part of me thought we might be like reconvening later tonight, Ryan, because I really thought that trailer was going to drop today. But if past precedent is anything to go by, then we're looking at another week because they did not make an announcement yesterday. This is Monday morning. They didn't make an announcement yesterday about the trailer. And I believe that they would have if it were going to come out tonight on Monday Night Football. So we did see a screen grab of the trailer, we think, from Greg Grunberg. And then John Boyega told the internet, or Star Wars fans on the internet, that it's soon, and that he knows like the wheels are in motion or whatever. So we've known we were getting a trailer no matter what, you know, but like now we really know because people are talking about it even. Not in the way I want them to talk about it, which is this is when the trailer is coming out and it's now. But like I feel like people involved are acknowledging like, okay, it's not just that you guys can be reasonably sure that there's going to be a trailer, but no, there is a trailer. It exists and it'll be soon, but we just don't know when. So,
yep.
You know, it's one of those things where it's like Star Wars fans, we're ridiculous because we convince ourselves for weeks like we know when the trailer is going to be. You know what I mean? I was convinced it's got to be the 14th. I mean, come on, what are they going to not do it on the 14th? Yeah, they're not, you know. But
unless they are.
Oh, well, that's true.
14th is just getting started. Has
Good Morning America aired yet? I mean,
I don't know.
No, it's not.
I have no idea. Probably. I don't know.
But it's just so funny that, you know, like I don't know. We just obsess over these things, and we're so sure that we know when things are going to happen, and I don't know. It's just funny. But another week,
I think it's because, as Star Wars fans, we secretly just want an excuse to watch the NFL.
Yeah, could be. Some of us watch it, Ryan. You know, some of us watch the NFL. I watch it once in a while, kind of. I'm in a football pool every week, but you know what? Let's like cross our fingers, and maybe we'll just spend this week repeating the mantra, I am one with the Force is with me, and then hopefully next Monday we get that trailer.
Yeah. But in the meantime, there is plenty of other Star Wars.
And, I thought you were going to say, in the meantime, are you ready for some football?
Ooh.
No. Okay. There is plenty of Star Wars to talk about. We got some notes here. And we're going to kick it off with comics, which is your forte, Ryan. It's your expertise. Yeah. Tell us about Star Wars comics.
Yeah, so something we missed in our last episode, I think because you were grumpy, is the main reason why we didn't talk about this.
Yeah, also because we were at like the 2 hour and 10 minute mark, and the episode was so long and meandering that I had to cut it into 2 episodes. So that was the other reason. Yeah. But I was grumpy.
You were grumpy.
Old man Luke on Octo. But I'm feeling good today.
Good.
Yeah.
So we knew that the Marvel mainline Star Wars book was being canceled. We knew that was coming, what is it, episode 75? Issue 75?
I think that sounds right, yep.
Yeah. And then there's like another one shot after it, and then that kind of wraps up that era of Star Wars comic, which is kind of wild because it's 75 issues, and I believe there were only 3 writers on the book for all that time. So it's Jason Aaron, Kieran Gillen, and Greg Pak. And yeah, so that's a nice compartmentalized run. That's all the stuff that takes place between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So that era is done. I know that when we were talking about, like, obviously they're going to relaunch a comic called Star Wars. Like, that's going to be a mainstay. It's always going to be around. And I think, we were hoping that it would be something set, around the sequel trilogy characters.
We were, and probably my, like, maybe I shouldn't say worst case scenario, but like the thing that I was like really hoping they're not going to do is, end the Star Wars mainline comic just to relaunch it with like the same characters and the events immediately following the run that they had just done. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about the numbering so much. It's fine. Like, whatever, you want to start over because you're in the, the era between Empire and Jedi, fine. But it just not announcing, hey, we're ending it with 75, but not announcing what comes next, like, gave us this couple week long period where it's like, ooh, what are they going to replace it with? And I think like the most anticlimactic thing they could possibly announce is, we're going to fast forward a couple months and then it's post Empire and you're still just reading about Luke Skywalker and Leia, but now Han's in Carbonite, That's like kind of, I'm sure the series will be great. It's not like I'm like down on it, like it's not going to be good or anything, but it's just like that is definitely the most anticlimactic thing they could have done, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I already getting grumpy again? My God.
Yeah. And no, I think that's fair. I think that was, what we were talking about. Like, I think we were like, oh my God, are they going to relaunch it and have it be, around sequel trilogy characters and like, their adventures between, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, or even post Rise of Skywalker. Like, our brains were going crazy, and then it's like, well, we're in Shadows of the Empire time now, which is what this time period is officially known as.
Had they uttered the word Shadow of the Empire, it would have been less anticlimactic, but yeah.
Well, no, this is the Shadows of the Empire time period between Empire and Jedi. It's cool. There's some interesting dynamics happening here. I like this time period because, I like Shadows of the Empire. I like the dynamic of Han being in Carbonite. And there's potential for fun stories here. And also, we should mention, it's being written by Charles Soule, which is a really good sign. He's maybe the top Star Wars comic writer right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know people are pretty high on Tom Taylor right now, right?
I'm pretty high on Tom Taylor right now.
Yeah.
But he's definitely he's produced a lot of great Star Wars comics, and he's, continuing to do so. Like, he's got that Benda Ren, The Rise of Kylo Ren series coming out in December, which should be fantastic. So yeah, it's cool. It's not exactly what we wanted, but it's something I will read and probably enjoy. I would love it if they did throw in some Shadows of the Empire love, though.
Well, there's a possibility there. You want to see the Outrider? You want to see Shizor?
I want to see Shizor. Yeah.
Shizor, I think, is a very long shot, as is Dash Rendar, but you never know.
Well, Dash is canon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he there was an Easter egg in one of the Jason Fry books that made a reference to Dash Rendar.
Okay.
So yeah, one of like the Jason Fry young adult books. So
Okay.
Dash is around. Dash is around.
All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, they definitely do like to, reference those things or kind of bring them in a Easter egg sort of way when they can.
Yeah.
I think so. It's not out of the question, but we'll see. How many issues of the mainline series did Phil Noto end up drawing then, or will he have ended up drawing? It was only like at 67 or something that he came on, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think he's finishing out the Greg Pak run. I'm actually like a whole arc behind on the mainline Star Wars comic. So I'm not totally sure what's happening right now, but
well, I've been going to the comic book shop again, which we'll talk about in a few minutes here. And I'm just thinking like I should go back and just grab whatever issue he jumped in on, and just grab all of those all the way up through the end of this run, and then maybe give it a try when it relaunches, and consider just sticking with it monthly from there and following along. We'll see. Star Wars comics, it's an interesting prospect for me, like as far as buying them goes, because it ends up being a fair amount of money if you buy all these comics, you know what I mean? So then it's do I really want to spend that, that money every month? And then, but then once I do, like these Vader's Castle comics, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, they do bring me into the comic book store. And like once I find myself going in there on a semi-regular basis, it's sort of like, well, yeah, I should just stick with this and keep doing this, and it's kind of fun to have something to look forward to going in and picking up like that. So we'll see. But no, I love Phil Noto so much that I was really excited when he was coming on to do the series. Not so excited that I went out and bought the comics, but I was excited. So I'm thinking, this nice, neat little compact run on Star Wars that he had. So I should just fill it out.
So just a heads up, because I mean, for me, it was like definitely a money issue, and definitely like just getting to the shop every week issue, which was like a bigger challenge for me. But so November 19th, the first Pak/Noto trade comes out, collecting issues 68 through 72, and it's $11 on Amazon. So that's 5 issues. You look at like going to the shop, they're $4 a pop. So it's
like half as much money.
Yeah, it's a little cheaper.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, let's keep talking about the comics, the news and stuff. I don't know. I'm a little too weird to maybe do that because, I mean, I would either want to get everything in trades or get everything single issues. I wouldn't really want to have a mix of the two,
Yeah. My collection has just become like a nightmare because I'm still trying to read everything, but yeah, like I haven't really been able to make it to the shop on a regular basis, so I've kind of chilled on buying single issues. So now my collection is like, I have the first like, God, I don't know, like 3 years, I have like every single issue. And then now it's like a mix of like digital and trades.
Yeah.
Where I'm at now, so.
Okay. But Dr. Affer's coming back too, right? Because this is like, so we're relaunching Star Wars. It's going to be Charles Soule and, what's his name? Jesus Sayer, is that what it is? Is doing the art. I think that's his name. Saez, Jesus Saez. Are you familiar with him at all?
I think so. I don't know. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the preview pages here, which is a pretty.
Oh, hey, look at that! I saw that movie, The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. It's, here's a whole page of Luke's hand getting cut off. Good stuff. I think I I think I like the coloring on this. It like really, it seems like really bright, and it's not going for, and it's like a little more cartoony compared to like the Salvador LaRocca stuff, which was like just basically like digitally painted stills from the films essentially.
Yeah.
So this looks a little more cartoony, and I kind of like it.
The Mallrats comes to mind when I think about that guy's art. You know what I mean?
So you trace.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm curious to see. I want to see some of the art from the interior art here with like human faces and stuff, because like looking at some of these, looking at these pages, I definitely got the cartoony vibe, like almost like anime kind of colors and stuff. But then, I don't know, like looking at some of looking at Luke in the distance there, or that hand up close on the lightsaber, I'm like, oh, is it gonna be more of that like photorealistic style? Which probably is, which is whatever. But, you know, I will withhold judgment until I see it. But these pages look nice, you know, so
yeah.
Hopefully it'll be good. I'm sure.
And then always two there are a Star Wars book and a Darth Vader book. So there's going to be another Darth Vader comic on the shelves, as there always needs to be. And that is going to be written by Greg Pak. So.
All right. So Charles Soule wrote the Darth Vader series that people love, right? I mean, he did
it's
a killer
so
job.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one that was like 25 or 30 issues, the first one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really tight run.
Yeah, and that introduced Afra and all that stuff, right? So.
No. That was Kieran Gillen's run.
Oh.
Because there were two Darth Vader books.
So Charles Soule's was not the first one then?
No, Kieran Gillen's was the first, yeah.
Gotcha.
And then in the absence of Soule's Vader book, there's been like Dark Visions and Target Vader and other ones that I don't really read. Right.
And they fired Chuck Wendig, and all that stuff happened.
Yeah.
But no, I'm saying that now Charles Soule is moving over to Star Wars and writing Star Wars, and then we have somebody else coming in to do Darth Vader, it looks like. So, well, Greg Pak, who is on Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a flip.
Yeah.
Sort of. Not really, but a little bit. Okay.
That's the path.
So there will be a Star Wars comic. There will be a Darth Vader comic, and then Afra's coming back as well, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe not right away. I'm not sure when, but because she's not like it's not part of this article on StarWars.com.
No.
But I know she's coming back. So.
But Afra's like definitely continuing, yeah.
But it's stopping though too, right? Like they're stopping everything in December, I think, and then she'll come back later on in the year or something. I don't know. I don't really understand comics actually. just talking about this right now, like I was pretty hyped a few minutes ago, and then like just talking about like, oh, and then they're gonna have this series over here, and then Afra's stopping, but actually it's not stopping, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I don't like comics that much.
Yeah, there's a lot of actually no, I think there's cryptic news around the Afra book. So it's the fate of Afra should be in issue 40.
Yeah.
And then it's either going to end or it's not going to end, or it's going to start over. But this is like, I mean, this is just Marvel Comics, because like there's these diminishing returns as numbers on comics get higher. So then you want to, have a reboot. So then it starts over at like number 1. So people jump on board again, which is what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
And so they do this like constantly. And then there's like legacy numbering on comics, which like we can't even get into, but it's kind of a mess. But hopefully there's some good stories at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say that on this week's Star Wars show that they flat out said, like, oh, yeah, Afro will be back. But I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I think they did.
There was some talk.
Okay.
Okay, so another, and this is could be really cool. Happening over. We got a couple like Japanese comics, some manga announcements as well. So I'll just read this here. Viz Media has officially released the press kit for their just acquired manga publishing rights to Star Wars: The Legends of Luke Skywalker by Ken Liu. Let's see. It's The Legends of Luke Skywalker, the manga, is scheduled for release in early 2020. The anthology will feature a collection of stories by a cadre of renowned manga luminaries. And then it like reads off a bunch of the names. And what's really funny about this is one of the creators in this manga is the one who's been doing the Zelda manga for like years, which I don't think like a lot of like Nintendo fans and Zelda fans are aware of, but like there has been like a consistently running Zelda manga that's been released in English, and it's like adaptations of the games basically, but like goes into a lot more. It's like an alternative telling of the events in the games.
Yeah, I used to see those at Borders all the time, so that shows you how long they've been going, because there was quite a few of them at Borders, and Borders has been gone for quite a few years. So yeah,
so this should be really cool. Yeah.
And it's The Legends of Luke Skywalker, which, I mean, that was a pretty fun book. There was I had some issues with the execution, but I loved the concept. And so, and it seems like the kind of thing that could be really fun for a comic too. It's just the idea of, sort of all these larger than life Luke Skywalker stories, and especially I would be less excited or less interested, I guess. I'm not going to say like, oh my God, I'm so excited, but I'm intrigued. I'm interested. And I think I'd be less so if it was like, Marvel doing it or something, because there's this air of like, I shouldn't say air of, but they're just like a little more serious and more for adult audiences and stuff, and I could see this just being like going in on being more fun, different style.
Yeah. It's always like, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars through a Japanese lens. I, like maybe when I retire, my twilight years will be a research project around the history of Star Wars in Japan, but it's really fascinating, and like I love the Star Wars fandom in Japan, and like all the things that are created officially and unofficially there, and it's such like a unique situation. So yeah, like it's wild to me. Like I've they've been publishing the translated versions of the Lost Stars manga, and like Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. It's the official Blockade runner favorite Star Wars book, I think, or at least in the top running.
It's high in the running, yeah.
High in the running, and then they've been releasing volumes of this manga, which is just like, it's just wild, and it's really wonderful. I like it a ton, and there's a manga coming out for Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which has been like happening in Japan as an official webcomic, like a retelling of that. And so hopefully that will be published at some point and translated.
Yeah, and there's a Last Jedi. manga adaptation too, that has been it's been localized. So I mean that's cool.
Ooh, I haven't read that.
Yeah. So yeah, something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and then just announced over. This was announced like 2 days ago on. I saw it on Fantha Tracks. Kodansha is going to publish a book called Tribute to Star Wars, and it's 45 of Japan's leading manga artists and illustrators draw the world of Star Wars, which I have no idea what this is going to look like. And yeah, so this should be pretty fun. Actually, I think Fantha Tracks made this very easy for me to pre-order because and it's coming out the 16th of December of this year. You can actually just they put the ISBN number in the post, and you can just copy and paste that into amazon.co.jp and then pre-order it for shipment to the US.
Wow. Okay.
So
nice.
I am definitely going to grab this. I have no idea what it's going to be. It's 96 pages of Japanese artists drawing Star Wars, so it should be pretty fun.
Yeah, and it looks like it's like 4,100 yen, right? So how many dollars is that roughly, right?
Probably like 35.
Okay, yeah.
Before shipping, and then you're probably looking at $10 shipping, so like $45.
Okay.
But it's kind of one of those, like, it's like a little more expensive than you'd probably want to pay for a book, but it's also kind of one of those like really unique and cool things.
Yeah.
So
cool. And you obviously, Ryan, I think have an Amazon Japan account or whatever, but how difficult is that to order from Amazon Japan?
So easy.
Yeah, you can use the American credit card, no problem.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
you can go in there. You can change the language to English for like all your ordering information. I just recently ordered the Mega Drive Mini, the Sega Genesis Mini. I ordered the Japanese version because it has better games than the American version, and or games that I like more, I should say. And then I ordered that, and I ordered it like on a Saturday, and I got it like that Thursday. Like, yeah.
Okay. Nice.
So
nice. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So we will link to those in the show notes, and we'll link to that Amazon.co.jp listing. And if anybody else wants to hop in on that manga book, that'll be an easy way to do it, and with Ryan as your guide on how to order from Amazon Japan. So nice.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, why don't we talk about these Vader's Castle comics, Ryan, which we've been looking forward to. I dropped the ball, plus I was grumpy last week, so we did not talk about them last week when Vader's Castle #1 had just dropped, but these are weekly comics from IDW, spooky Halloween comics. There will be 5 total, 1 for each week in October, and or 1 for each Wednesday in October, I guess I should say. And the first 2 are out with 3 more to come. So let's talk about them overall. The previous series featured a group of adventurers who had crash landed on Mustafar, and as they were making their way towards this big black evil-looking structure in the distance, which of course was Vader's castle, they were telling some spooky stories on their way, and that was sort of the framing device for the first series of Vader's Castle comics. So now for series 2, one of those adventurers, I forget the fellow's name, but he has a beard now. Well, he had a beard then too, but he's a bearded fellow. I forget his name, but he is being held hostage or being held prisoner by Van A from Rogue One. And so Van A is telling him spooky stories while torturing him. Is the framing device for this one. I kind of like it actually. It's a little less in the first run last year. It was like the comic, the first few pages and the last few pages were like, what's going to happen to these adventurers? And it's less that now and more just like, the framing device takes up less space and time, I guess, is my point.
Yeah.
And it doesn't compete for attention
as well. Like, I love those pages. And those pages are done by Francesco
Francavilla.
The cover artist for all the beautiful variants, and one of my favorite artists working in comics, even though I have not learned to pronounce his name, and that's on me.
Yeah, I like his style quite a bit, and it kind of reminds me a little more of another one of our favorite artists. I mean, it's not the same, but has some similarities with Elise
Chatier.
Yeah, like a little bit. I feel like I see some resemblance between. It's a little more. It looks like. I don't know. It's got a little more of a youthful type thing going on. I don't know how to explain it because I'm not very knowledgeable about those sorts of things. But yes, I love his style. It fits really well with IDW, and it's awesome that he's kind of opening and closing all of these comics.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So let's talk about the first issue here. I like this issue a ton. It's got it's kind of got like moments of like a slasher chase vibe to it, because basically you have creepy spider Darth Maul chasing down this group of adventurers in in a spaceship and all of this stuff, and there's a betrayal and then some comeuppance at the end. It's like that perfect like kind of like dark twist at the end, and I mean, like, we've had many opinions on this show about Spider Darth Maul in general, and like Spider Darth Maul, robot like Darth Maul, all, everything that's not humanoid like Darth Maul, we've had a lot of opinions on, but I think it works really well in this story, and it actually like makes me be like, oh, that's really cool in this context. So
yeah, I'm with you on that. My favorite thing about this one is the fact that it really does stick to the premise of like, let's do a scary story with an evil character. It's got a Halloween thing because it's this evil, scary monster spider Darth Maul, and it's just about these bounty hunters or whatever they are, pirates, whatever, being scared of this scary creature. And so, yeah, it's perfect for that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've had many opinions about Darth Maul, Spider like Darth Maul, though. I think there's probably just been two. Awful, and then like, you like it, I guess. That's probably the two opinions, but mine has not swayed in any way from my original position. Although I love the usage here, as you said. So I guess you could call that a new opinion a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, I like it. I can't spend any more of my life being mad about Darth Maul coming back to life. I finally read last week. I read Darth Maul's Son of Dathomir, which is like one of like the weird pieces of. It's just an interesting miniseries of comics because it's one of like the few pieces of the EU that survived into like the new canon, and I've been meaning to read it forever, and I I read it, and that is a wild book. That is some really weird Star Wars right there. And I kind of liked it.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm learning to embrace it all.
Yeah, I certainly don't believe that I am in the still angry about Darth Maul coming back stage of my life. But I'm don't think I'll ever be in the celebrating Darth Maul coming back stage of my life either, you know. But that doesn't mean I can't enjoy, if he's back, he's been back. Like, although, I was just gonna say that doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy it if he's included in, something and it's well done and it's fun. Like I do enjoy that episode of Rebels where he has this confrontation with Obi-Wan Kenobi out there in the desert in Tatooine. I like that episode. Doesn't mean that I still wouldn't prefer they didn't bring him back, but they did, so I'll enjoy that episode when I come across it. But I was just gonna say, man, I still can't imagine myself enjoying it if he's in the Obi-Wan show in any capacity. Which you feel like, well, he won't be because I already told that story on Rebels, and that's the only time they ever ran into each other again, etc. Well, besides Clone Wars, but actually they run into each other whenever they feel like it, don't they? Okay, yeah, they'll probably put him in the Obi-Wan show, and I'm not excited for that, but we'll see. Maybe they will trick me into liking it. So, all right, let's talk about number 2, The Curse of Tarkin. This one didn't work for me as much. I mean, I still enjoyed it. I didn't like it as much as the first one. It's absolutely a Frankenstein story. It's just like Star Wars' take on Frankenstein, with Tarkin as the Dr. Frankenstein character, and then there's this monster guy that he put together, or the Empire put together, that is, the Frankenstein's monster. But in most Frankenstein stories, I'm not an expert on this actually. I was just talking to some of my colleagues who teach Frankenstein. I don't know that I've ever read it, to be honest.
Oh, okay. I have not.
Oh, you haven't read it? Okay. So, but in any case, I feel like most of the time you're at least a little bit scared of Frankenstein, and there's like an unpredictable and sort of scary element to Frankenstein's monster, the Frankenstein monster. And with this monster, I feel like he's just a straight up good guy. And so, where does the horror element come in? I mean, I guess what happened to him, but he's painted as a heroic character. And I love Tarkin on the cover with his little, needle and syringe thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Ooh, he looks like the evil doctor. But that's really not how the story plays out. It doesn't really read like a spooky story.
No. So yeah, I love the Frankenstein story. I think my big, touch point for that is the Universal Monsters film, which I adore. And I think this felt weird to me because I feel like there's been a Tarkin, Frankenstein story since 1977. I feel like Darth Vader is kind of the Frankenstein's monster kind of character, at least in the OT, before he started to get at least in episodes 4 and 5, before his character was really started to be fleshed out. But there was I've always kind of felt that vibe in Star Wars, that is the that's the Frankenstein story. So it's kind of weird to be here's Tarkin, and there's this other monster too, which is I don't know. I don't love the monster's design, really.
Yeah.
I get it, but it doesn't really do much for me. So
yeah, and the interior art on this one too is not my favorite either. It's not bad, but it just doesn't really, do so much for me either. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of this one is definitely not my favorite. It's okay,
Yeah,
it's fine. But as far as this whole premise goes or whatever, I think that's part of the issue. It's as a story itself, it's okay, it's fine, it's whatever. But I'm really looking for like them to lean into the spookiness kind of side of things. So that would be preferable to me, to go more on the spooky side of things. So we'll see. Issue number 3 coming out next week features Asajj Ventress. Actually, you know what? I have to say, I don't think this one's going to be too spooky either. It's Asajj Ventress and a Sarlacc monster, I think.
With like a little shop of horrors motif happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is going to, I don't know. Yeah, I don't feel like this one really is going to be like super spoopy either.
Yeah. Let's hope that the number 4, the Jabba one, will be a little spookier. But even that one doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be super spooky either. So this might be one where issues 1 and 5, kind of bookend it with some spooky stuff. So we'll see. But
yeah,
I'm still in support.
Way.
Like I love it.
Yeah.
I love the idea of it, and if they do a third run next year, even if these ones aren't super scary or whatever, like I'm still going to be on board. But
yeah, like this series is absolutely a gift, even if it doesn't hit all the time, which is the case with anthology horror. Like there's pretty much, anthology horror is like, it's a genre staple, and it has been since, I don't know, like the 50s with like the comics, and some of the stories work better than others. Like we're watching Creepshow on Shudder, and we just watched episode 3 last night, and like one of the stories was like super strong and like maybe my favorite in the series so far, and then like the other story was just like, that was okay, that was fun. So yeah, it just, that's anthology horror. So
yeah, right on. Okay. Well, let's talk about them. Actually, Ryan, maybe you can sell me on Allegiance, Star Wars Allegiance number 1, and why you think it's so great. Because I guess to frame this for everybody, we wanted to talk about some comics news, but then there's some we just love the Return to Vader's Castle thing, so definitely wanted to talk about those issues a little bit. But then also this series that's part of the journey to the Rise of Skywalker, Star Wars Allegiance. The first issue came out last week, and this is a weekly series as well, right? So it's going to be 4 or 5 issues?
I think 5. Yeah,
5 issues, starting last week and then running up through early November, I guess, right? And but it's part of the journey to the Rise of Skywalker, and so I grabbed this when I was in the comic book shop to pick up issues 1 and 2 of Return to Vader's Castle. And Ryan, you read it last week too, and Kevin read it, and you guys were like raving about it. You loved it, and I like it. But let's just talk about this one a little bit too, because it's kind of a big deal in comics. And as I said, it's part of the journey to the Rise of Skywalker. So that's reason enough to talk about it right there. So why did you love this comic so much, Ryan?
Sequel trilogy characters.
Oh, okay.
Is the short answer.
All right, yeah.
I think, we've gotten so precious little of, ancillary material around the sequel trilogy characters and events that, anything that, any little morsel, I'm just devouring and reading probably too deeply into. And so there's a few things I really liked about this first issue. So first off, I love, and I'm pretty you consume enough Star Wars over the years, and I feel like you kind of get numb to opening crawls. Because every video game has a unique opening crawl, so many comics have and continue to, and so a lot of times I just find myself just reading it and being okay, well, that sets the stage, it's fine. It doesn't and this is like a totally different conversation, but like I feel like opening crawls should just be reserved for the movies to keep them special. But that's neither here nor there. I don't think every Lego Star Wars mission needs an opening crawl, but that's just kind of where we're at. So, but this one, I absolutely really caught me, hooked me right away, because the first line in this opening crawl is Luke Skywalker is dead. And that's such like a, oh yeah. I mean, that's where we're at right now. So this really kind of tells you yep, we're picking up after Last Jedi. Not totally sure the exact time, which is fine. But so jumped in with that, and I was like, okay, that started with the weight. And then there's stuff in the opening crawl. Supreme Leader Kylo Ren will stop at nothing until the Resistance is crushed and the entire galaxy is subjugated. And then it's meanwhile, Leia leads the last of the rebels to find allies. So that's the book's called Allegiance. And I think that's a really solid plot for a miniseries. This is going to be about Leia and the Resistance reaching out for allies. And I think that's just a good, that's a good 5-issue plot. So I like that. And that's what, this is kind of about. And so a few things, we start off with these weird, I shouldn't say weird, that's rude. We start off with these bug alien creatures, and they're living on their crazy glass planet. They're formerly, they've always been a neutral planet, even through the war, between the rebellion and the Empire. And then, the First Order just comes and destroys their planet, basically.
Yeah, it's a very prequels / Clone Wars kind of look too for the planet.
Yeah,
and all that, the design much more sci-fi heavy, and so that's kind of cool too to see juxtaposed with the sequel kind of vibe, which definitely moves pretty far away from the prequel Clone War type thing, and as far as aesthetics go, and is firmly in the original trilogy look for Star Wars. So. Something you could do in a comic that I don't think they would really do too much in a movie, although we do have The Rise of Skywalker coming out that's supposed to kind of try to bring everything together, and I'm sure they will do that visually at least a little bit as well. So, but anyway, so it opens up with that and kind of shows the might and the true evil of the First Order in the way that they decimate this peaceful civilization.
And so, I think right there, I think there's been a lot of questions around, the motivation of the First Order. Are they just a wannabe empire? They're from the ashes of the empire. But so, this is the kind of thing that I think Lucasfilm has been trying to convey the whole time, that and it fits with Kylo Ren as well. This is basically a more unhinged version of the Empire. That's what the First Order is. And I feel as much as I love The Force Awakens, one of my big complaints is that the destruction of the Hosnian system by Starkiller Base, it didn't feel as weighty as it could have, because they, the Death Star destroys Alderaan in A New Hope, and that's like, whoa, that's insane. And then like the Starkiller Base destroys like an entire system and like multiple planets and stuff, and specifically the system that is like the New Republic government. And I feel like, you know, we've over time we've like seen more of like the weight of that, but like it's still like, I don't feel like it's totally been super well conveyed, like how like just nihilistic the First Order is. And I feel like these first few pages kind of like hammer that in, maybe a little bit better than was done in the film.
Yeah, I would say that's my favorite thing about this comic, is the fact that it really does kind of show the First Order as a unhinged, as you said, kind of really evil organization, and I like that. And you have your heroes, the rebels or resistance here, like really against the wall, up against the wall here, and yeah, you do see that. And I think I totally agree with you about The Force Awakens. It's definitely a little bit of a miss in that movie, just the whole political situation and the fact that you know, you don't really I mean, we understand it, you know, I understand it, you know, very well, like what the First Order is doing and what the deal with Hosnian Prime is, and why, you know, Leia is spearheading this resistance and how that's actually different from the Republic and all that. But I think most people that went to that movie did not understand that, because the movie doesn't really do a great job of explaining those things. That being said, I am pretty okay with that being one of the failings of The Force Awakens, because I think, you know, they sat down in JJ and Lawrence Kasdan and all that. It was sort of like, I mean, number one, I think to them, really what mattered is that there was something to incite a conflict, or that they just needed to have a conflict between like an empire and a resistance or whatever, or First Order and resistance. And I don't think they cared that much about the backstory of it. But then really the big thing is, to me, a bigger fumble, a bigger miss would have been to try to look at their task with making that movie as, well, we need to really reestablish the universe, and we need to make sure that, you know, everybody understands all the politics behind all of this, and that we have to we got to worry about lore, and we have to worry about world building, and we have to worry about all these things for the transmedia, like, you know, we know we're going to have comics, we know we're going to have books, we know we're going to have like TV shows, we know that we want to continue to mine this era of Star Wars storytelling for years to come. So, you know, I guess my point is, I think they had a singular focus of telling a good story with those characters and introducing those characters and creating a pretty character-driven movie. And they viewed all this stuff as the backdrop for that. And it's there to support the story they wanted to tell about those characters. And I think with genre, you know, filmmaking and genre storytelling and stuff, like there is a tendency, or there is a danger for storytellers to care too much about all those little details and things like that, you know. And Star Wars isn't sci-fi, and I think like, and I mean, you know, it's not really sci-fi anyways, it's more of a political thing. But I guess my point is just that like they kept their focus on the human story of Rey and Kylo Ren and, you know, Han Solo and other characters, and Finn, and they did not focus on, you know, the politics. And there's a lot of YouTube videos about how, you know, the politics are unclear in The Force Awakens and yada, yada, yada. I don't really care, because I care about those characters, and the story they told with those characters is great. And I know that you're not, you know, you weren't like complaining about it, like, oh, what a mistake. But I guess I just wanted to take a second to kind of reinforce the fact that I actually think it was a great decision. And it's not that there isn't a way that they could have made it feel a little more impactful. They could have, you know, without sacrificing their focus on those characters and stuff. So not to say like it's not a flaw in the movie, because I think it is, but it's one of those flaws that I can be very okay with, because I feel like the genesis of that flaw, or the root of that flaw, is that they cared more about people and characters and storytelling than they did about world building and, you know, lore and creating a transmedia project, you know, property or whatever. And so I'm pretty okay with that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where I think probably like that team and JJ's strengths are. It still feels like a missed opportunity, because I don't feel like building and politics and telling good character stories are mutually exclusive in Star Wars. I think, I'm one of the people who absolutely loves the political machinations in the prequels, and I love like the escalation and the like I just watched Phantom Menace again yesterday while I was building a Lego set, and like I just love the way that like you see the Senate like bogged down in bureaucracy, but that's like kind of like a self-created thing, and then you have like Palpatine coming in and being like, well, you could vote no confidence in the leader, and like we could get things expedited here, and like all that stuff like that. I don't know, like that stuff still, like it's very George's look at American politics through like a sci-fi lens, but it also like really feels like Star Wars to me, and I think it like I think it like rewards the investment in that stuff by the time you get to Revenge of the Sith, and you see what's going on in like on the political side of things in that movie, and then you eventually get to a point where you watch A New Hope, and then you hear Tarkin talking about how the Senate is no longer a concern because it's been disbanded. And then you're like, oh, damn. Like, and that's like a ton of weird stuff like happening there, because obviously that movie came out decades before, the Revenge of the Sith, but like, it's also like a very small line in A New Hope, which again, like I think, George wasn't as willing to like fully commit to like the political sides of things then, but it's that line is strengthened by, that whole part is strengthened by having watched the prequels, as many things in the original trilogy are. But I guess like my point is like it was a not super impactful moment in Force Awakens. That's fine. That movie still rules. But I still think there's, work that can be done to make it feel more impactful. Like if they continue to like explore some of these threads in the ancillary materials, I think, Bloodline by Claudia Gray and even Leia, Princess of Alderaan, did like a really great job exploring that. The Aftermath trilogy by Chuck Wendig did a great job exploring that. And I think like some people are like, I don't care about taxation of trade routes outside of Naboo. Like, I don't want that. That's not Star Wars to me. Like, I hate that. I hate the prequels, like all that stuff. That's fine. Like, people get different things out of Star Wars, but I feel like that is something that is like core to Star Wars, and the core principles of Star Wars can change and evolve and whatever, but I think like it's still a worthwhile aspect of the saga to explore.
Yeah, for sure it is, especially in a comic or whatever. And they're not mutually exclusive. And I think like with the Force, politics and human stories and all that stuff, I think with the case of The Force Awakens, it really was trying to emulate or follow the same kind of balance or focus on, politics versus the human story and stuff that A New Hope did. As you said, not the prequels, but A New Hope. And I think a few more lines, just a couple of lines here or there within that script could have brought it more in line with the way A New Hope tells its political story versus the way The Force Awakens does. It could have been written better in terms of making that story clear, and it wouldn't have required a lot more time and energy. But the prequels do spend a lot more time and energy on politics than the original trilogy, and that's a choice that George made, and that's fine. And I love those movies too. But even Rogue One focuses more on the political. And Rogue One, there's more death, there's more consequences for your characters, and Rogue One is a good example of a movie that's still emotional and character based, but does kind of tell a political story more. But that being said, because you could point to that and say, well, hey, they do both in Rogue One, and it's great, and they do, but it's not the kind of story that The Force Awakens was aiming to tell.
Yeah.
Even still, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think the more. Because I really feel more emotionally invested in Rey and Kylo Ren and Finn and Han Solo in The Force Awakens than I do in Jyn and the crew in Rogue One. But it's they kill almost everybody in Rogue One, and Jyn has this super emotional scene with her father, plus there's all this politics and stuff. It's just how much energy am I as a viewer spending on these different elements? And it's in The Force Awakens, all of my energy is being spent on just how these characters are interacting with each other, and almost none of it, very little of it, is being spent on thinking about politics and stuff like that. Again, it could still be great if it was more like that. It would just be a little bit different movie, I think. But I guess I don't know. We've kind of covered this at this point, huh? But yeah, I mean, everybody agrees that the politics stuff or the political stuff in The Force Awakens definitely could have used an extra pass in some regard. You know what I mean? And then I guess that's where the comics kind of can pick up. And I have a feeling that The Rise of Skywalker is probably going to be a little bit of a similar scenario in terms of how much time is spent on the political and things like that. I'm going to assume very little. So it's a good opportunity for the comics. Then
Last Jedi spends very little time.
Yeah.
On galaxy politics. There's a detour into military industrial complex and arms dealings and stuff, which is a total it is something that runs parallel to governments and conquests and stuff, which I think is really interesting. But of course, The Last Jedi would have this weird divergence.
Yeah, but it's in there, and it's great. I think that's so smart, and so, just great that's in there. But it's there to teach Finn a lesson. That's why it's there.
Yeah,
it's not there because Rian Johnson was really concerned with, educating his audience about the state of galactic politics. That's not why it's there. It's there because.
Yeah.
It shocks Finn, and it causes him to question what he thought he knew, and that's why it's in there. You know what I mean? So
well, yeah, but I think you can also take it is a thematic element. I think most thematic elements in fiction are to move a character's story forward, but that doesn't mean that they're that's their only purpose.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think this conversation, I think really kind of bringing it back to the comic book, that's kind of what this is. And so this is where your mileage may vary with this comic and this series, because this is about political maneuvering around war, and conquest. And so you have, on one side you have the First Order, who are just, decimating planets. It's a show of might, but it's also just we're not the ones to we don't play Palpatine's games. We don't they're not doing the the threats and the all of just the machinations of Palpatine that he used to keep the galaxy in line. Because after Alderaan, did Palpatine actually destroy any more planets completely?
No, I mean, not in the films anyway. No.
Yeah,
destroyed Alderaan, then they destroyed the Death Star, and then he tried to build a second Death Star, and then Luke destroyed that too. So
yeah, and that's Star Wars. um, yeah, but like his thing was more about like we're going to control these planets, we're going to control their governments, we're going to control their leaders, we're going to have everything like in service to the Empire, and we're going to, and like I think that is a theme that has been done really well in Kieran Gillen's run on Star Wars, which is going to connect to this issue in just a moment. But like he did these stories about, how the Empire kind of controlled planets and leaders, and then also at the same time how the rebellion sought out allies. So I think like that's a really good exploration of these themes and stories and world building and stuff in like the original trilogy. And now we're getting something kind of similar for the sequel trilogy in this Allegiance book. And I think like what's really great about it is the way that it kind of connects across generations, because I think and I guess we're getting into spoiler territory here, but basically there was there was that run of Kieran's on Star Wars that was Mutiny on Mon Cala, and it was all about the rebellion recruiting the Mon Calamari people and getting them to end their fight against the Empire. And now we reach the end of this issue, and the like Leia is in the sequel trilogy era once again going back to try to recruit the Mon Calamari, and they're like, how dare you try to get us to join another one of your hopeless causes, because there's, after that mutiny Mon Cala, there's the Charles Soule Darth Vader arc that is the Burning Seas, which is about the Empire's retaliation on Mon Cala for them joining the rebellion. And so I think it's the comic book thing of like, the more you invest, the more it pays off kind of thing, where like, these are arcs I read 2 years ago, a year ago, and then like it's all kind of coming back in this issue, in universe time decades later. And I think that's just really, really cool. The way that it's so connected to, it's connecting the two of the different eras of Star Wars right here.
I see. Okay, that makes sense why, for you it was like a total home run, and for me I was like, oh, that was a good comic, like it's I definitely am into like the way it's setting up the conflict between the First Order and the Resistance or the Rebellion or whatever they're going to be called in episode 9. And I'm totally into that, and I love the Leia stuff, and so yeah, I'm into it, but not really for me. I'm not making those connections between previous story runs on other comics and stuff. So I guess that's where, to me, I was like, oh, good story, and to where you were like, wow, it was amazing.
Yeah, and I think right now, like the connections are like kind of surface level for me. So I think issue 2 of Allegiance comes out this week, and that's going to dive even deeper into this relationship between Leia and the Mon Cala, and specifically Akbar's son, which is apparently happening here, there's a lot to unpack in that. But before issue 2 comes out this week, I want to reread Mutiny at Mon Cala and Burning Seas, because I haven't actually read them since I was reading them as they were coming out monthly, to see if it's really as strong and like good of a connection in my head as it is like actually in what was like executed, because I might be filling in a lot of blanks on my own here, and like because like I'm like, oh, this is genius, like this is awesome, but there may be some things that I'm missing in it all.
Sure.
That like the connections aren't as strong as they are in my head right now. So
Sure. One thing to wrap up this little convo here about this comic, one thing I would point out too is towards the end, I think this is General Hux who's talking to someone within the First Order who's like, hey, we think we've identified, some of the rebels or resistance or whatever. And Hux is like, well, don't waste my time with every little, rumor you hear about or whatever. We're not going to chase that down. And then Kylo Ren walks in and is like, no, we are going to chase every little rumor down until we can wipe them out of existence, This is very Vader.
Mm-hmm.
Very Vader in Empire, when they're like, oh, well, it could be, I forget which admiral it is, but he's like, it could be smugglers, it could be pirates, it could be anything over there on Hoth. And Vader's like, no, that's them, we're going,
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. And, we'll continue to see kind of what role Kylo Ren plays in The Rise of Skywalker. And we know he's going to be the Supreme Leader. All the merchandising refers to him as the Supreme Leader.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know how long, like, is this supposed to be right after The Last Jedi, I assume, right? This comic, or I think The Rise of Skywalker is only a year after anyway, so there's not that much time. But I mean, he, based on his comments here, he is hell-bent on like, we are going to find them and wipe them out of existence, So he seems pretty, because I know there's been some question as far as like, well, is Kylo Ren really dedicated to the mission of the First Order? Does he even care, And I think that's still a question worth asking, but he certainly is playing the role anyway at this point.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So anyways, I'm looking forward to picking up issue 2 this week. It looks like it's 4 issues actually, because in the back of the comic, it shows the 4 connecting covers.
Oh, the 4 covers. Yeah.
I actually ended up, I wasn't even thinking about it, but I picked up the variant cover of it.
Which one?
It looks like this.
That's the best one.
Yeah. I originally thought that it was not. I thought they were sold out because I got there on a Thursday and came out on Wednesday, and I went to at the comic book shop I go to. There's like this whole section in the S's of all these different Star Wars comics, and there's like a million of them, because there's like a million Star Wars comics. So, it wasn't there, and I was like, oh well, that sucks. Star Wars Allegiance. I guess it's not in. And then I also couldn't find issue 1 of Vader's Castle, and so I was checking out, and I was just buying this and one other comic, or Vader's Castle 2 and one other comic, and I mentioned to the the guy that like I couldn't find it, and anyway he went and found me the Vader's Castle. The other issue was like hiding behind something, and then he took me to the J's, and they had this comic in the J's because it's Journey to the Rise of Skywalker. Just keep your Star Wars comics together. I know, because I'm like, well, that's like the 3rd subtitle of this comic. It's like Star Wars Allegiance, and like last is like the fact that it's part of the Journey to the Rise of Skywalker. So anyway, they may have missed out on a sale or two based on that kind of organization. But so he just reached out and grabbed me the comics. So I didn't, but I like the variant cover. But now I'm just gonna have to try to find all the variant covers when I go, because. What do I want to have 3 of the 4 connecting covers? Come on.
Ooh.
So,
yikes.
Yeah.
Those connecting covers are really cool too, and
yeah.
I actually like the photo cover, which I don't usually like, but I really like the Rey photo cover, as well. That's a Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. So I'm super curious where this goes. I think it's always like one of my favorite things about comics is always like it's that connective tissue where you like read something and then you're like, oh, I need to go back and read X to like, because that's informing something here. And I think like that's always like a really fun thing, and a fun part of collecting comics in whatever form you do it in, just to having like that access where you can do that quickly.
Right on. Yeah.
So anyways.
All right. Well, Resistance, Ryan. We're an hour and 15 in on this episode. I think we can talk about Resistance relatively quickly, unless you feel like you have a lot to say on Resistance Season 2. Okay. Well, 2 episodes have dropped. Episode 1 is called Into the Unknown. Episode 2, A Quick Salvage Run. Episode 1 of Season 2 was a little bit of a weird experience for me to watch because I'd already seen it in April at Star Wars Celebration in the Resistance panel. So I've been kind of sitting on my feelings on this episode for a few months now, at least. But, it's a good episode. There was a lot kind of up in the air at the end of Season 1 of Resistance because they had left Castellan on the Colossus, jumped into hyperspace, being chased by the First Order. And so it was just kind of a question of where's that all going to go? Sorry, still dealing with this cough here. But anyways, a lot of questions. And then episode 1 of Season 2 kind of answers those questions to a certain extent. But then it also just sort of focuses on the story where there's this leftover First Order droid in the Colossus that they have to go kind of stop. And it was good. It's a good episode. It does absolutely continue the story of Tam and her conflict and her joining the First Order with Agent Tierney and all that stuff. But for me, I feel a little bit like, with Star Wars Rebels, they used to always kick it off with like a big epic first episode, or maybe even like a first like 2 or 3 episodes in a big epic arc or something to really make you feel like, whoa, like this is going to be big stuff, this season or whatever. And Resistance Season 1 ended with like such a, we can do big things with this kind of ending. And then they're like, well, let's spend the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of the episode on that big storytelling stuff, but then just give you a little bit of like a Kaz bumping his head into things, and I don't know what, just kind of.
Yeah. So I actually I recorded. I have this in my notes that I took on my phone. In this episode, Kaz falls down a flight of stairs. He bumps his head on some metal while getting up, and then also there's a part where he just randomly falls down while walking in a hallway, which I don't really understand, but I guess that's the thing with physical humor. You gotta do it 3 times. And they definitely do Kaz clumsiness 3 times in this episode, and they're all like, and there's pregnant pauses, it's played for laughs, and it's like, really, we're back to this now? Like, that's what this show is again? So I kind of agree. Like, it's not a strong season opener episode. Like, it really isn't. Like, you get the obvious kind of conclusion to the stuff that happened at the end of the really strong finale for season 1, and then it's just like it's kind of that feeling of like, you do know this is your last season, right? like do like, is this how you want to spend it? And yeah, so I didn't love this first episode.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I just to me it just kind of shows where their priorities are, I guess, with Resistance a little bit, and maybe that's a difference in showrunner and stuff like that. But yeah, it just feels like I don't know. I kind of think that they are just like, let's make a show for kids. It's a cartoon for kids, and kids enjoy episodes like this, and that's fun for them, and like it's fun. I think it's a very solid episodes of Resistance, but it's just one of those things where I don't know if they just don't really care that much about hooking like an adult audience into the show, or like, you're not going to get like a lot of adults watching it, but like at least like the Star Wars fans, like the people that are into everything Star Wars, like it's not really making the push, even with the storytelling, at least structuring it this way to bring everybody in. But then episode 2, a quick salvage run, I'm like, oh, why wasn't this the first episode of because you can tell a story like that with CB having to fight an evil First Order droid. Like, I mean, I guess that droid being there was like, it's about like revealing their location to the First Order. So, that makes sense that it's early on like that. But, man, why not just tell a story like a quick salvage run for your episode or for your season opener, which to me just felt so much more exciting than Into the Unknown. Because a quick salvage run is about the fact that they are like on the run from the First Order. They don't have any coaxium, and they are gonna get caught any minute now because Kaz naively sent a message to Tam on the in the First Order, and she turns him in with Elijah Wood's help, and yeah, I mean, like, it is just so much more exciting. And there's a space battle between X-wings and TIE fighters, and there's coaxium, which is this really cool nod to or kind of connection to Solo, and yeah, it was just like super fun and cool episode, and just felt a lot more epic, I think, than the season opener.
Yeah, I think this like the episode, it's kind of like packed with stuff, and it's really brings a lot of things together. So it starts off with a troopers talking about speeders, a kind of classic Star Wars Easter egg, that in this case is not an Easter egg because it's very much like the focus of that scene, which, comparing speeders and stuff. But yeah, so that was like a fun, like, oh, I see what you did there kind of moment. And then I think we talked about like the, kind of like what was the point of having the pirates join on the Colossus at the end of the last season? Like, are they going to do anything with that? Does that need to happen? And I think like maybe, yeah. Like, I think it's actually kind of paying off already in this episode, like having the pirates joining, because I feel like there's a few like really good moments, and I think just some good use of the pirates to like move the plot along. I really like the drunk pirates at Aunt Z's at the beginning of the episode. Just like, that is like the most like obvious drunk people I think we've ever seen in Star Wars. Because they're like just pounding brews, passing out, getting into fights, like yeah, it was kind of a fun, just like scene setting. Like, it was, I think that made them going into Aunt Z's to have a conversation more interesting than if it was just like, Niku and Kaz just like sitting in an empty bar talking.
Yeah, that stuff is fun. I like that. And I loved the pirates when they were actually on the Star Destroyer, and like the Trandoshan was like carrying that stuff around and being like all goofy or whatever, and he couldn't remember how to say coaxium. I thought that was funny, and I love that there was the oh man, they're called the Hosk triplets, or I forget the name of that species or whatever, but the werewolves from The Force Awakens. Like I love that guy, and no, that was great. I mean, at the same time, they could have sent literally anybody from the Colossus over there to salvage that stuff. Like it didn't need to be pirates, and in fact, it wasn't even pirates who salvaged the coaxium. It was Niku and Kaz and whoever. So but I would say it's paying off in terms of just like being fun to watch them.
It's like window dressing.
Yes.
I think and I think it's like if that scene had just been like Niku and Kaz doing a little task together, like we've kind of seen that a lot, and I think it made me think of how, you know, like Rian Johnson originally was thinking about like Finn and Poe going on you know, the adventure to Canto Bight together, but then ended up making it Finn and Rose, just to add like a change to like a dynamic and perspectives, because like we had seen Finn and Poe like on an adventure, the two of them before, and like, and now it's kind of like the same thing, but instead of like changing up the main players, it's changing up like the people in the periphery. So I think that is actually really cool. Like I like having the pirates there, and I also think there was like a really I know you're not like the biggest Sonara fan, but I thought the part where you know, like she's talking to Kaz, and you know, like her being there to be the person who's like, Kaz, are you why are you making these communications? Like, are you sure you can trust Tam? And then he's like, well, I trusted you. And I think like that's like a really strong like character moment in the episode that I really liked, and I think like you know, would have been less if like the pirates had just gone off in like their own way and Sonara had gone with them like at the end of season 1. So I think it's paying off, having them there, and I think like I'm definitely enjoying it.
I certainly enjoyed their presence as well. So yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, a great episode. I think it was really fun. I was excited as I was watching, and I was texting you, telling you like, man, this week's episode's really good.
Yeah.
And I think it is. And so, you know, upcoming episodes, I don't have the titles up right now, but it really seems like they're going to be, you know, in different planets and locations. And you know, I think there's a lot of room for this season to be really exciting. And, you know, hopefully more episodes, like a quick salvage run. Although, you know, Into the Unknown, again, I enjoy watching it. I just kind of puzzles me that they would make that the first episode of the season, because it just didn't really totally excite me. And I came out of that panel at Star Wars Celebration being like, all right, well, you know, we had the end of season 1. It was like really ramping up, and it seemed like it's going to be high stakes and exciting. And then they opened season 2 with like kind of not a dud of an episode, but just not a super exciting one. So I'm glad to see that even by episode 2, it's giving me more of that excitement that I want from at least a good chunk of the episodes of the season. So, and I think it's somewhere between 18 and 22 episodes. So we'll be watching Resistance all fall, and then again in, you know, the post Rise of Skywalker era
through
as well.
Like spring, probably.
Yeah, probably April.
That's
maybe
wild.
March or April it'll wrap up. So
yeah,
we'll see where it goes.
A couple more things I did want to say on this episode. Like I mentioned that it was like a packed episode, and I mean that in like a really good way, because like it brings in, you know, obviously the like the main characters like Jaeger and Niku and Kaz, and you know, they're all in their doza, but then also we get more of the aces, which is something that, you know, we have been kind of like craving. Like I've wanted more aces combat. Like I want to know like what is the deal with these people. And we got like a lot of like hype Phazon, content, but we haven't really seen much from the rest of them. So we actually got a few more speaking lines from them in this episode. Nothing too revealing or anything, but like it's also just like it's just cool because they're all cool looking and they have these cool ships, and we like never really get to see them. And it's like, you know, it's a big we originally thought this was going to be a big part of the series, but like now just like every little bit I think is a gift.
Yeah, it was fun. I was happy to see them, but like I was almost insulted is way too strong a language, but like when Hype Faison had his line, I was like, man, don't even give him a line. If all you're going to do is bring him in for like seriously 10 seconds of screen time just to have him like say one thing, and then like they just do so little with the aces that it's, to me, it's like,
yeah.
And that's part of and it's been a while since I was talking about that pirate stuff, you know, in season 1, but like it's part of my issue with like the pirates being on board and the aces and all the main characters. Like there's so many characters and different little groups and stuff that they've introduced in this show, and apparently it seems like they only ever had the intention of doing 2 seasons, and then like they have these aces, and they barely did anything with them in season 1, and then like couldn't it have been the aces that went over to like the Star Destroyer to get the coaxium and stuff? But it wasn't, because it was the pirates. So then what do? Like we bring the aces in for 2 minutes total of the episode, and then like 1 or 2 of them get a line, and it's just like it's fine. But to me, they barely do anything with them, and they're not really using them. And like I'm not going to celebrate like them bringing the aces in for 30 seconds and saying one line and then being like, oh, so now they're using the aces. Like, no, they're not. They're still not using the aces. They do nothing with them, and they use them as like a get out of jail card or get out of jail free card when they need somebody to fly an X-wing and blow something up. But they're not characters on the show. You know what I mean? Like Hype Faison was for a couple episodes in season 1. But other than that, they're not characters on the show. They are like cool costumes, basically, that they will put into an X-wing and have them do something once in a while. And it seems like a big missed opportunity. And that is one of my issues with like the Pirates and Sonara and stuff is I just feel like they don't have room for all these characters. And so I don't know. Maybe the Pirates are ultimately more fun for a kid show than the Aces would be. So maybe they made the right call there. But I don't know. I can't help but feel like when I see those Aces come out, it's like I got a lot of drunk pirates every episode, but never anything with the Aces, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. For me, it was just like, no, I guess you're right. Like they haven't like earned they haven't earned it. They haven't earned the compliment on it. But, at the same time, I still just like seeing those characters in action because like, I mean, they are like, I don't know, I guess like the Boba Fett's of the show where they're just like cool looking. And maybe, which there's plenty of that in Star Wars. And that's like, I mean, that's fine.
Maybe that's what they intended, you know? Maybe they never planned on doing anything with them and just thought, well, if we're going to have some pilots on the Colossus, let's make them all look interesting and stuff. But I don't know, you got like Steven, what's his name? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. He does so many voices in Star Wars and Star Wars Rebels and everything else.
Steven Stanton?
Yeah, Steven Stanton does one of the voices of one of the Aces, and, you know, like, what? I mean, I guess they were just throwing him a bone and putting him in the show because he barely says anything, doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? So, like, what?
Is he like,
Gruff Holloway? Yes.
Gruff Holloway, yeah.
With the cool Imperial tap, but I don't know why he has it. I mean, like, they just don't do anything.
I know, I want to know. We've been talking about this since the very first episode of Resistance. Like, what is this? I mean, like neo-Nazi dude doing?
Maybe it's better to have characters that you don't develop, but like the audience is looking at them thinking, wow, they're interesting, I'd like to know more about them, rather than bland characters that they do try to develop and then you just don't care. You know what I mean? Sonara, anyone? But I'm just
Sonara's great.
Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I guess like I'm not outraged. It's fine. You know, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I can't get excited about the Aces because I just feel like they are a missed opportunity for the most part. But
I agree.
But we'll see. There's a whole season left. You know, maybe they will really
I hope so.
redeem those aces and their value.
And then then people will, give them their proper due. People will love the aces. Then we can get toys of their ships with figures. We can get some Black Series aces, and then we can get that video game.
I would be pleasantly shocked and surprised to get any Resistance merchandise at all ever again, but we'll see what happens. True. I don't think there's going to be a wave 2 on the toys. I don't think there's going to be any video game. I don't think there's going to be no pajamas. I can't even get those, remember those plastic sort of children's cups that they have at Target in the $1 spot or whatever. They had those for Star Wars Rebels. There was Rebels lunch boxes. There was plenty of Rebels gear. You're not getting anything from Resistance. That ship has sailed. Sorry about that.
That ship has sailed and then has crashed at an end cap, and it's all marked down to clearance prices. And those figures are going to sit there forever because this show was not accessible to the target audience.
Yeah. Yep.
So we've had that conversation a few times.
Yes.
But I don't know. I still like Resistance. It's it's a great weekly dose of Star Wars until Mandalorian drops. I think
dude, the interest in Resistance is going to
I was just
crater when Mandalorian comes out, and I mean I'm still gonna watch it every week, and
I'm gonna watch it, but our unpacking episodes are
and I just for the show
enjoy this 30-minute conversation about Resistance, because come November it's gonna be 2 minutes.
Yeah, probably. But I just I feel like they just already struggle so much to get Star Wars fans to pay attention to them, and once Resistance comes, once Mandalorian comes out, it's over. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna be paying attention anymore. I mean, I will. You will. We'll watch it.
Yeah.
But people are not gonna care.
I'm invested in the story. I do care. I want to see how this story plays out. I love Tam's story, which was really well executed in this episode. She made some challenging decisions. She's feeling pressure from a lot of different angles. Yeah. I like the Tam stuff. It was really good. I will say though, it's super. I mean, it's a kids show, so it's okay. It's fine because my kids probably aren't thinking this necessarily, but Tam is clearly going to realize the errors of her ways by the end of season 2 and rejoin them and, probably save the day in some way because obviously. Yeah. But I'm just saying the fact that Elijah Wood was basically the one who decided to turn that comlink in instead of her takes a little bit of the tension and a little bit of the conflict out of it for me. Oh God, I forgot that was.
I don't like that. I just wanted Tam to look at that thing and be I'm going to choose to sell out my friends. But instead they took that away so that it's Elijah Wood who basically forces her to do it. So once that happens, it's Tam didn't even really decide to sell them out. It's just not as, when they do bring her back to the fold, it's just not going to have quite the same significance it would have if she made that mistake and then she realized she made that mistake, because it's she took a half step towards making that mistake and then somebody else made it for her. You know what I mean? So I don't love that myself, but it's not a big deal. Overall, I still, I think they did a really good job with it. And you're seeing the conflict within her, even if they're not letting her make choices completely based on that conflict.
Well, yeah. Okay, blast her to your head. You have 5 seconds. What's the name of Elijah Wood's character in Resistance?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't have to know his name because I know him as Elijah Wood.
Yeah, that's great though.
And I hated him in that first episode.
Dude, that episode when he was he's the worst.
Jet ski, and he was just such a
he's such a dork.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I think
yes.
I think that is all. My only issue with this episode is I don't love the ending. So basically they get their coaxium, it seems to me that they are making another blind jump.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes us exactly back to where we were at the end of season 1.
Yeah, I guess so. Although it was really cool for them to arrive at Octo, or I mean not Octo, but Dakar, and have it be like already they were too late. We're past the beginning of The Last Jedi.
Yeah,
and they've already gotten away. So
that is cool.
I thought that was cool for sure. But yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm sure episode 3 it'll be like, here's where we are, and Doza, and Doza, I forget the name of Doza's droid, but he's like, program the jump or whatever. And maybe the implication is that they've already discussed that, or like,
maybe
that, yeah, there is a plan. They just don't state it, in the episode.
Okay, one last super undercooked storyline, and this goes back to what we were talking about before. Kaz's dad is alive.
Yeah.
We almost didn't even mention that because that's like not even it's so undercooked in this series.
It does lay the groundwork for some things that could be interesting going forward, though, because he says that like there's a bounty on Kaz because the First Order identified them, and he also says you put the whole family at danger or at risk or whatever. So that could be interesting. I'm just wondering though, like, what side is he on? Like, is he going to be on the side of the First Order or on the side of the Resistance? You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, well, I'm part of the Republic, and they destroyed the Republic, and luckily I didn't die because I was off-world. And so that seems like, oh man, he's going to for sure be in with the Resistance because they almost killed him and whatever. But it's like, why were you off-world when that happened? And like, is there a possibility that he's involved with the First Order in some way, and then that's why he was off-world, etc.? Now, granted, the amount of time they put into it in this episode and the way that they kind of seem to develop stories like that, it doesn't seem like that would be there would be that much of a twist or that much thought put into it necessarily, and whatever. But I don't know. I've never trusted Kaz's dad. He's always seemed like kind of a jerk, and I wouldn't be shocked if somehow he was not on the right side.
Yeah, but it's just funny though, because like at the end of season 1, we were all like, oh man, Kaz's family was killed in that attack on Hosnian Prime, and like that's what the show was like setting you up to think. And then they're like, secure holotransmission.
Yeah.
It's your dad.
Yeah.
Like,
it's your dad, but
so
also
like,
you are going to be like, oh, cool, you didn't die. And then like it'll be a 5-second conversation, and like that's it. So yeah. I mean, it's the kind of show Resistance is, I think. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
which is fine.
Yeah, and okay, cool.
Yes. So we'll wrap it up there.
Well, okay.
No,
one more.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I just want to say like it's no Ezra's search for his parents.
Because that was super emotional and well done.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it. I mean, it's the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, and there were a lot of things in Rebels that I take issue with, especially in seasons 3 and 4. But man, I thought everything they did with Ezra's parents was amazing and really emotional and really well done.
Yeah, I was just thinking yesterday about how I want to do a full Rebels rewatch.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it'll be on Disney Plus pretty soon. I don't know if it'll be on there on November 12th or not, but it's definitely going to be on Disney Plus. So
I got those blues.
Yeah, but there's going to be a convenience factor to just like
for sure.
But yeah, okay.
Anyways, so speaking of Rebels, let's wrap this show up by just playing the entire clip of Freddie Prinze Jr.
I mean, I'll probably drop it in here because he's awesome.
Don't forget to age gate it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
it's content warning. No, I the morning.
Work.
Well, it came out like I guess everybody started sharing it. I want to say like Thursday night or Wednesday night or whatever night it was.
Yeah.
And I was like getting ready for bed or tired or I don't know. I couldn't watch it, and I was like, I'll watch it in the morning. And then I was like standing in my kitchen getting ready for work, making coffee, all that stuff. And my 6-year-old was at the kitchen table. And I started just like watching it on my phone, and I look over and he's got his hands over his ears, like covering his ears. Like I can't, there's bad words. So I had to stop it and then watch it again later because Yeah, there's a lot of F-bombs in there from the GOAT, Freddie Prinze Jr. Too many for me to bother trying to like censor all of them or anything if I were to drop the audio into the podcast. But basically, he calls out all the entitled a-hole fans and that rip apart the sequel trilogy. And would you say like the focus of his argument is that Star Wars is for kids? It's always been for kids. It's not for you. And George Lucas has and Dave Filoni, as an extension of George Lucas, has a very well thought out sort of like concept for what the Force is and what Star Wars is, and like rather than spending your life on the internet complaining about it and not understanding it, like listen and and try to understand instead of being a
I think like he mentions like, oh, this is something for kids,
yeah,
but like I think the main takeaway that I had is like, obviously Star Wars is not just for kids. That gets thrown around every once in a while, but like there it's a lot for adults. And obviously there's a bajillion Star Wars podcasts, where one of them, and we're adults talking about Star Wars, and like we talk for way too long because there's like so much stuff for adults to talk about in Star Wars and to appreciate and to consume and everything. And I think like his like the takeaway I got from his rant was like for one, like just this idea that like Star Wars needs to be this thing that just caters to like badass wish fulfillment fantasies for like, dudes in their 30s and 40s. Like that's not all that Star Wars is. And there was an era where we got a lot of that, in the comics, in the video games, in the EU, and that's not what Star Wars is now, and that the things that are happening now are like even closer to, George's vision and something more thoughtful and nuanced than even stuff that was happening under George at the time.
Yeah.
And like stop getting mad because Star Wars is not exactly this thing that you've made up in your head that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yep, exactly. And we'll let the GOAT, Freddie Prinze Jr., speak for himself here, either before or after our little commentary. And I think with that, we'll wrap it up, Brian.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So we will be back next week with more Blockade Runner podcast. I'm really, fingers crossed, Ryan, hoping that we're going to be back with a Rise of Skywalker trailer breakdown conversation, whatever, sometime in the next, 7 or so days. We'll see what happens. But as I texted you guys yesterday, this is not a game. So I hope that they stop pretending, they stop playing, because this is not a game. We need to see some stuff. And, we've been talking too over the weekend about how so far the promo and the hype building is a little underwhelming for this final Star Wars movie. I feel like it doesn't seem to be the thing that everybody's talking about, and it doesn't seem to be the thing that is all over the place in the media and around the water cooler at work and all that. And I guess we're still early, but I don't know. It just feels like for the other two Star Wars movies, they started building that hype in September and just kind of tried to keep that ball rolling all the way through the release of the movie. And I still feel like they're being relatively quiet. So I don't know. I'm just waiting for that big blast, and I thought it was going to be Triple Force Friday, and it hasn't happened. So maybe it'll be next week at Monday Night Football. But, God, they just have so much else going on with Fallen Order and Mandalorian. I thought, if anything, they'd get out early with the final trailer for The Rise of Skywalker, because they also have to, kind of support all those other things. But nope.
Yeah.
It's still a little bit underwhelming. So anyway.
It's a weird problem to have, because next month, Star Wars is going to be competing with Star Wars.
Hypothetically.
And, like, I mean, it's going to... I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. We've never really had something like a moment like this in Star Wars where there's like 3 giant projects coming out, including a film that is also a final film that, I mean, this is like completely unprecedented, and I don't know, like, I mean, it's all I can think about. But, and like, that's the case for people like us, but like, I mean, eventually you got to get the rest of the world on board.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case for the public consciousness, really.
No.
It's really kind of weird when you think about it, too. I mean, it's the final Star Wars movie. To have it coming out at the same time as The Mandalorian is kind of odd. But I understand that Disney Plus is a major priority for them, and that's just how it all is shaking out. But it just really feels kind of weird that you're not devoting like all of your energy and attention to The Rise of Skywalker in, you know, the quarter that movie is coming out. But different conversation for a different day. We have to have a trailer next week, right? I mean, we've got to. And if we don't, I don't know what they're doing. So hopefully that'll be the case. We will be back to talk about it for sure. Until then, you can follow everything that we do at blockaderunnerpodcast.com, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on Resistance or Star Wars comics or Freddie Prinze Jr. or whatever Star Wars topics. You can email us at blockaderunnerpodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear from you on Twitter. The show's account is at Blockade Run. Ryan, you are on Twitter at...
Brawn Dwarf, BRAWNDWARF, and you can send me your favorite FPJ memories from high school there on Twitter. I would love to hear any thoughts, opinions, and stories you have about Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr. Or you could send your favorite WWE storylines that Freddie Prinze Jr. may have written when he was a writer for WWE, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's something I found out not that long ago, and I didn't know. But he went and worked in the writer's room for WWE. It's wild. After he was like a big star, not before.
Yeah.
After, it's crazy.
The Renaissance man of our generation.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Yeah, it ain't Joaquin Phoenix. It's FPJ.
Yeah, I've kind of turned the corner on the Joker, though, to be honest with you. The more I hear people talk about it and like reaction to it and stuff, I'm like, man, maybe that movie is good. It's hard for me to believe it is, but I don't know. I haven't seen it. Anyways, we got to wrap this show up. So thanks very much for watching and or listening, and we'll be back very soon with more Blockade Runner Podcast.